Professor Vex9 clicked his mandibles in what he assumed was amusement. The final tactical assessment for the Advanced Combat Theory course had been running for precisely 4 hours, 12 minutes, and 37 seconds. By now, most species would have either completed the objective or admitted defeat. The rules were simple enough. 24 students, divided into 12 teams of 2, had to navigate the simulation chamber and retrieve the quantum beacon from the center platform. The catch? The entire arena was filled with adaptive defense systems, environmental hazards, and enough automated turrets to make a warship jealous. Status report, Assistant Cree-Alpha? Vex9 inquired, his 6 eyes scanning the holographic displays showing student positions throughout the maze-like structure. Sir, 11 teams have been eliminated, Cree-Alpha replied, her tentacles dancing across the control interface. The Alterian duo lasted longest so far at 2 hours and 43 minutes before the plasma mines got them. The Centauri pair made it to the 3rd level before the gravity wells crushed their exoskeletons. And the less said about what happened to the vegan students and those rotating blade traps, the better. Vex9's mandibles clicked faster. And the remaining team? Still active, sir. Team 12. Ah yes. Vex9 pulled up the roster. The human, Jake Morrison, paired with, wait, who did we pair him with again? Cree-Alpha's tentacles paused mid-dance. Well, sir, that's the thing. You remember how we had an odd number after student Zix4 got that unfortunate case of scale rot? We were going to pair Morrison with someone from the remedial class, but, you said, and I quote, let the human work alone. It will make the failure more educational for everyone. Vex9's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. I said what now? The main display screen flickered to life, showing a feed from deep within the simulation chamber. There, casually strolling through what should have been a corridor of death, was Jake Morrison. The human was whistling. Actually whistling, as if he were taking a pleasant walk through a park instead of navigating a death trap designed by the galaxy's finest military engineers. Is he carrying something? Vex9 leaned forward, his compound eyes trying to process what they were seeing. According to the sensors, he's collected 17 different components from destroyed defense systems, 3 emergency ration packs, and... Cree-Alpha paused, checking her readings twice. A potted plant? A potted plant? Where did he get a potted plant in a military simulation? From your office, sir. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that usually preceded either enlightenment or a complete mental breakdown. Vex9 was leaning heavily toward the latter. My office is on the other side of the academy. This simulation is a sealed environment. How did he, sir, I think you should see this. The display switched to a wider view. Jake Morrison had reached the central platform where the quantum beacon sat on its pedestal, surrounded by the most sophisticated defense grid the academy could design. Energy barriers hummed with lethal potential. Plasma turrets tracked his movement with mechanical precision. Gravity wells waited to compress anything larger than a molecule into a very small, very dead pancake. Morrison set down the potted plant, pulled out what appeared to be a sandwich from his backpack, and began eating lunch. Is he having a picnic? Vex9's voice had reached a pitch that only dolphins and very confused bats could properly appreciate. It appears so, sir. In the middle of the most dangerous section of the simulation? Yes, sir. While surrounded by enough firepower to level a small moon? That would be correct, sir. Morrison finished his sandwich, carefully wrapped up the remaining half, and then did something that made both observers question their understanding of physics, military tactics, and the basic nature of reality itself. He started taking apart the defense systems. Not destroying them. Not bypassing them. Taking them apart. With his bare hands. And putting the pieces in his backpack. Cree-Alpha. Yes, sir? Are our sensors malfunctioning? I've run diagnostics 3 times, sir. Everything is operating within normal parameters. Then explain to me how a first-year human student is dismantling military-grade defense systems like he's changing the battery in a comm device. I cannot, sir. Morrison had cleared a path to the beacon and was now examining it with the same casual interest one might show a moderately interesting rock. He picked it up, turned it over a few times, and then put it in his backpack with everything else. Did he just steal the objective? It appears so, sir. That's not how the simulation works. He's supposed to bring it to the extraction point. Morrison, apparently oblivious to proper simulation protocol, had picked up the potted plant and was now walking toward what looked like a maintenance hatch in the far wall. Sir, that maintenance hatch leads directly to where, Cree-Alpha? To the observation deck, sir. Where we are. Vex9's mandibles began clicking so fast they sounded like a percussion instrument having an existential crisis. Are you telling me that this human is about to, the maintenance hatch behind them opened with a soft hiss. "Hey there, Professor." Jake Morrison's cheerful voice filled the observation deck. "Hope you don't mind, but I borrowed your plant." The simulation chamber was looking a bit bare. Vex 9 turned slowly, his 6 eyes focusing on the human who was standing in his supposedly secure observation deck, holding his favorite Terran fern, wearing a backpack full of stolen military equipment, and grinning like he'd just solved the galaxy's most amusing puzzle. "Morrison," Vex 9 said, his voice barely controlled. "How exactly did you get here?" Jake shrugged. "Maintenance tunnels. Figured if you're going to make a maze, might as well use all the available routes, right?" Kree-Alpha's tentacles had stopped moving entirely. In her species, this was equivalent to a human's jaw dropping to the floor and staying there for an uncomfortably long time. "Morrison," Vex 9 repeated, each syllable dripping with the kind of controlled panic usually reserved for reactor meltdowns and tax audits. "You were supposed to retrieve the beacon and return to the extraction point." Jake looked down at his backpack, then back at the professor. "Oh, you mean this little glowing doohickey?" He reached into his pack and pulled out the quantum beacon, which was still pulsing with soft blue light. "Yeah, I got it. But here's the thing, Professor, there's a thing?" Vex 9's voice cracked like a teenager asking someone to prom. "Well, see, I was thinking about the objective. Capture the flag, right? But then I realized something." Jake set the potted plant down carefully on the control console, much to Kree-Alpha's horror. In most capture the flag scenarios, the real victory condition isn't just grabbing the objective. It's about understanding what the flag actually represents. Vex 9 blinked all 6 eyes in sequence, a nervous tic he developed after years of dealing with students who thought they were smarter than their professors. "Morrison, it's a tactical simulation. The beacon represents a strategic asset. You retrieve it, you win. It's not complicated. But that's just it." Jake grinned, pulling out more components from his backpack. "See, I started thinking about why you'd put the beacon in such a heavily defended position. And why the extraction point was so far away from the observation deck. And why there were maintenance tunnels that led everywhere except where students were supposed to go." Kree-Alpha found her voice. "Those tunnels are for emergency personnel only. They're clearly marked as off-limits." "Yeah, about that." Jake scratched his head sheepishly. "I may have a slight issue with authority figures telling me where I can and can't go. Occupational hazard of being human, I guess." Vex 9's mandibles started clicking again, but slower this time. More thoughtfully. "Morrison, what exactly did you think the real objective was?" "Well, Professor, I figured the beacon was just a distraction. The real test was whether I could figure out what you actually wanted me to capture." Jake reached into his backpack one more time and pulled out a small recording device. "Is that?" Kree-Alpha's tentacles began trembling. "Yep. Every conversation you two have had during the simulation. Including the part where you admitted you set me up to fail alone because you thought it would be educational for everyone." Jake's grin had taken on a distinctly predatory quality. Plus some really interesting commentary about how impossible it should be for a human to solve this scenario. The observation deck fell silent except for the gentle humming of the life support systems and Vex 9's increasingly rapid mandible clicking. "You recorded us?" Vex 9's voice had climbed so high it was approaching frequencies only used by deep space communication arrays. "Oh, that's not even the best part." Jake began pulling out more items from his seemingly bottomless backpack. "See, while I was in the maintenance tunnels, I found some really interesting things. Like backup power conduits, environmental controls, and..." He held up a small device that made both aliens step backward involuntarily. "The master override for the entire Academy's security system." Kree-Alpha's tentacles went completely rigid. "That's impossible. The master override is kept in the Dean's personal vault. It requires biometric scans, voice recognition, and a 37-character alphanumeric code that changes every hour." Jake shrugged. "Yeah, but maintenance workers need access during emergencies, right? So there's always a backup system. Usually hidden in the most boring, overlooked place possible." He gestured around the observation deck. "Like inside the climate control panel of a simulation observation room that professors assume no one will ever think to check." Vex 9 sat down heavily, his exoskeleton creaking with the strain. "Morrison, please tell me you didn't actually..." "Oh, I didn't use it," Jake said quickly. "That would be cheating. But I did document its location, along with about 17 other security vulnerabilities I found while taking the scenic route through your Academy's infrastructure." 17? Kree-Alpha whispered. 18, actually. I forgot about the one where your cafeteria's food delivery system connects directly to the armory. Probably want to look into that one." Vex9 stared at the human for a long moment. Then he began laughing. It started as a low chittering sound and gradually built into full-blown hysterical laughter that echoed off the walls of the observation deck. Sir? Cree-Alpha asked nervously. Are you experiencing a psychological break? No, Cree-Alpha. Vex9 wiped moisture from his compound eyes with one of his smaller arms. I'm experiencing enlightenment. He looked up at Jake, who was still standing there with that innocent expression that somehow managed to be both charming and terrifying. Morrison, in 30 years of teaching tactical theory, I have never had a student completely redefine the parameters of an exercise. Is that good or bad, Professor? That depends. What exactly are you planning to do with all of this information you've gathered? Jake's grin widened. Well, sir, I was thinking I could write up a comprehensive report on Academy security vulnerabilities and present it to the administration as my final project. You know, really capture the flag of institutional improvement. Vex9's laughter started up again. And the recordings? Oh, those were just to make sure I had accurate documentation of the exercise parameters. Wouldn't want anyone to think I was making up the part about working alone being more educational. The professor stood up, walked over to Jake, and extended one of his hands in what humans would recognize as a handshake gesture. Morrison, congratulations. You've just earned the first perfect score in advanced combat theory in Academy history. Really? Really. Though next semester, I'm definitely redesigning the simulation. Jake shook the professor's hand enthusiastically. Thanks, Professor. Oh, and you'll probably want to water your plant. It was looking a bit droopy. As Jake Morrison left the observation deck, whistling the same cheerful tune he'd been humming throughout the simulation, Vex9 turned to his assistant. Cree-Alpha, make a note in Morrison's file. What should it say, sir? Dangerous levels of creative thinking. Handle with extreme caution. And maybe keep the good snacks locked up. Outside in the corridor, Jake's whistling faded into the distance, leaving behind two very thoughtful aliens and one significantly healthier potted plant.